Welcome to the Emotional Mastery Podcast. I am your host, Rochelle. This podcast started as a space to really just share my journey, to share the experiences and the things that I was going through as I learned to self-regulate, as I learned to manage my emotions. And it has transformed into so much more. This space is really just everything that I trial and error. It's amazing guests coming to you, talking about their journey, their experiences with emotions, and really just take what resonates and leave what doesn't. This journey can feel really isolating at times. It is beautiful, it is painful, it is joyful, it is love, it is all of the things, and we are all of the things all at once. And so just have grace with yourself, have compassion with yourself through this. And I am so grateful that you are listening to this episode wherever you are listening. Thank you for allowing me into your day. I am beyond excited to bring you this week's podcast episode. I interview Krista and Lindsey from Almost 30 podcast, and it was just such a beautiful, magical experience for me to have them on the Emotional Mastery podcast for so many reasons. They are one of the first people I put on my manifestation list for my podcast, so it was just such an amazing experience for me to be able to check that box. I also took part in the Podcast Pro Accelerator program that they have once a year. And it was literally just divine manifestation that I got into the program, and I'm so grateful and honored to have been part of it. But it has been so healing in so many areas of my life. Like, I can't even explain. It's like when you get into the energy of the thing, it for one, like literally made my podcast a business. And it was, before it was, I loved it. It was my passion, but I didn't, there's so many things that go into it. And so it really like transformed the podcast. It really transformed the energy of the podcast. It really gave the podcast its own energy. This podcast is beyond me, right? Like, this is its own thing that I am allowing, not that I'm allowing, that is literally like channeling through me. And it's such a beautiful space to be in. It's such a beautiful thing to see unfold. But even more so than that, I saw the shifts happen in other areas of my life outside of the podcasting space. And so it was just so incredible to be able to be in their energy and see their intention, just, not just in their podcast, and every space that they have, every space that they share their energy. They're so intentional about it, and it was so beautiful. So it was really, really cool and amazing to have them on this show talking to me and talking to all of you. So I'm so beyond grateful for that. This will be the last episode until 2022. I will be taking the rest of December off to just rest, recoup, spend some time with my kids, and most likely batch and edit some other podcast episodes because I do genuinely love to work on this podcast. So I hope you are all taking a break as well. It is the energy. I've noticed a lot of people have been tired, and there was also a solar eclipse on the 4th. And so energy has just been big, very big. And I've been feeling it. I know a lot of people have been feeling it. And so really just leaning into that. The other really cool thing that I noticed, or I found out, was like so many dates in December, and I'm totally going to butcher it when it's like the same forward and backwards. I know it starts with a P and the word is escaping me, but like 12, 1, 21, it's the same forward and backwards, 12, 2. Anyway, so there's so many dates in December, and that's got to be some like vortex energy thing going on. So this month is actually just, I don't know, it just feels different. I'm so excited for next year. I am so pumped about this pod. I have so many guests that are coming to you guys. It's really been such an incredible ending to 2021. It's funny, when I first started 2021, I had my manifestation goals, didn't quite work out in the way that I had envisioned it, right? But like, it's always the universe's plan, not ours. And so it's just kind of really cool and really neat to like look back and see how it's been interpreted. And actually, I keep saying like my manifestation didn't occur. I had planned to be completely self-employed by December 2021, which hasn't fully happened, but this podcast has taken on its own thing. Like, this is its own entity now. And so in a sense, like, I am kind of like fully employed with it, beyond like what else I'm doing. So it's just, it is such a beautiful experience. So I'm also doing the TBM challenge, manifestation challenge for this month. And in it, when launch call, and Lindsey was talking about not putting specific dates to things. And that really resonated with me. I know a lot of people like to have dates for manifestations. And of course, everybody is uniquely their own, and that works wonderfully for some people. But I found that really resonated. And when we put dates to something and then it doesn't happen by that date, for one, if we're being like super specific and the thing didn't happen in the way that we wanted it to happen, which it never truly does, right? Because again, it's always the universe's plan for how things unfold for us. But being able to just kind of like interpret that, or I guess just like let go of that specific date. So that has felt really good for me. But I'm doing this TBM challenge every day. I'm back off or on. I'm back on the wagon with alcohol. It's just been a week, but I haven't had any drinks and I just feel really good. I feel really empowered. I feel in a really good space. Like the energy has been really good. I felt emotionally even, which we know it doesn't always last. So there's going to obviously be a dip at some point, but I am just riding this wave right now and I'm loving it and I'm enjoying it. And I'm just like allowing all of this beautiful, everything to just unfold before me in the way that it's meant to. The community space for the Emotional Mastery podcast community is open. You can click the link in the show notes for that. Our first call is going to be December 15th. It's going to be an intention setting call. So it's going to be intentions, manageable steps to get to our manifestations, our intentions for 2022. It feels really powerful. I'm really excited. You can still get in on that call. And even if you don't get in by December 15th, the call is going to be living in the space. So you can listen to it. You can always, even if you join whenever you're listening to this, if you decide to join the membership, that will be in there for you. So you can even revisit the goals or the intentions that you had set before 2022 and just maybe take manageable steps. Because I think like a lot of times we set these big New Year's resolutions, right? It's like we want all of the things and we want them now, or we just like choose like a really, really, really big goal. And when we're not like there by like, January 15th, life happens. We're human. And sometimes then it just kind of peters out or we feel bad about it. And so I really want to like do like a 3-month, this is my goal. I wrote down the call notes last night. And so it's really just going to be like these bite-sized chunks over a 3-month period that will get you to where you want to be, or at the very least get you in a place where there's momentum with your intention so that you're not feeling frustrated or overwhelmed. So that is what that call is going to be all about. And I'm really, really, really excited about that. So again, that link is in the show notes. So you can go down there, you can pop over to the community space, sign up, get in there. The price is going up in January. So if you are listening to this in December 2021, I suggest you run over there and get in now. Other than that, I think I'm not even going to take that much time in the intro because I'm so excited for this episode. And if you are listening, whenever you're listening to this, I just hope that you are gentle with yourself this holiday season, that you are kind with yourself this holiday season, that you set some boundaries, that you continue to do the things that light you up, continue to show up for yourself. I think that would be my biggest tip to get through the holidays, because we know the holidays are not easy for everyone. We know the holidays can be challenging on our mental health. I did an episode around Thanksgiving that really talked about how to keep yourself grounded and balanced during this time. So I'll link that in the show notes so you can pop over and listen to that episode. But yeah, just make sure you're getting rest, make sure you're drinking water, make sure you're eating some food that is going to nourish you. During the holidays, of course, we are going to have all of the holiday feast foods and enjoy it, love it. Don't make yourself feel bad about it. Just continue to show up in some way every day. If that means like you have a salad before you have your dinner, or just continue to move your body, whatever it is that makes you feel good, find that one thing and just make sure you're getting it in your day. Stick to some sort of a routine. For me, that's always going to be journaling, and that's always going to be movement, and that's going to be meditation at some point. When I am drinking, I try and make a point to meditate prior, because a lot of times, whatever the reason that I am drinking for, of course, like if you're just feeling great in that high vibe place, absolutely, like go for it. But my rule to myself is to always give myself a 5-minute meditation if I can, if not longer. But whatever I can give myself space for before I do, and just see how I'm feeling, and just to really get into the right mindset, to get into the right intention, to get into the right energy, so that, that will pass through me and maybe I won't feel bad afterwards, or maybe my emotions don't go wild, because that is is always the biggest struggle for me when I am drinking, is my emotions just kind of go off the charts in some way. And so that's why it just feels good not to be. But of course, we are all different. We all handle things differently. You know you best. And that's all I ever ask, in this podcast of the listeners, just really tap into that space and trust that space. And, if you are doing something that maybe is misaligned, having the awareness and just looking at it afterwards, like, what was that about? Or, why did I do that? Or, what is the trigger behind it? And again, like, we are all living this human experience. We're all on our own journey. We're all learning the lessons we're meant to be learning, and we're not going to get it right? We are human. We are going to make mistakes. We are going to fall back into that place of comfort and do the same thing that we did 100 times before that maybe pisses us off, that we're still repeating that pattern, but like looking at it and being aware and knowing that we can choose differently next time. Always have grace with yourself. Always like embrace that human side of us. I think a lot of times on the spiritual journey, we just like want to be the enlightened spiritual person, but we are here in this human form, having this human experience for a reason. So just have compassion with yourself, have compassion with others, and just, enjoy yourself and be true to you. I love you all so much, and I'm so excited to bring this episode to you. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, share on Instagram, tag me, share with a friend if this resonates with you. I am so excited for you to listen, and I'm so honored that you are tuning in today. Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Welcome on the podcast, Krista and Lindsey from Almost 30. I am so honored and so excited to have you here. I usually always start, I'll let you introduce yourself for anybody who doesn't know what Almost 30 is and who you are. But I always start with just like, tell me as much or as little as you like about yourself and kind of how you got here. And for you guys, maybe just kind of how you got to Almost 30, right? And like how that has shifted things in your life now.
Yeah. So I'm Krista and I'm one half of Almost 30. It's a podcast and a brand that I built with my best friend, Lindsey. And my journey really was a journey of seeking. I'm someone that grew up in a small town in Ohio, and I knew that I wanted more for my life. I tried really hard in a lot of different ways to find my purpose. And one of those ways was trying out for SoulCycle, which is a indoor fitness like experience you can do all over, but it's really community based. And I felt like every time I went, I felt so inspired. So I was like, I want to be an instructor. I want to leave the corporate world. I want to do something that's more flexible, that's more freeing, that's more creative, that's more leadership. That's all these things. So I was living in New York at the time, and I auditioned and didn't get the audition. I didn't get the first audition that I did. I was really uncomfortable on the microphone, actually. So I got on the microphone to be on the bike in front of everyone, and I felt really, really nervous, and it just totally choked me up. So I started to get vocal lessons when I was living in New York City during my lunch breaks at my corporate job. And I auditioned again for SoulCycle. And this time I auditioned again when I moved to Los Angeles. And in that audition process, I said, I need support. I need to find someone that's going to help me in this journey and someone that's going to help me with this audition, because I'm obviously not getting it. And so I got introduced to Lindsey, which was amazing, by a friend. And when we met, I just felt instantly connected to her. And I started to go to her classes, and we started to get to know each other. And I auditioned another time for SoulCycle. So a second time, and I didn't get it, but I had found Lindsey. So we had this amazing connection where we were having these really deep conversations about life and about the things that we were going through and about our journey and about what we wanted out of our life. And it felt really nourishing. I was someone that has had really beautiful female friendships, but also really unsuccessful ones. And I was someone that also wanted, just really a lot of depth in the conversations I was having in relationships. So we were sitting outside Bulletproof Cafe one day, and we said, can we start a podcast? And we did. We started recording for 6 months on our closet floors. We just recorded so much. We practiced as much as we could. And eventually we launched the show. And from there, it's really evolved into something that's been really meaningful to us. And for me, is definitely like part of my purpose to express in this way. And it's been really beautiful to feel like I can be, my curious self, my hardworking self, my funny self, my listening self on the show. And I feel so happy that we have a community that really supports us in that too.
And I am Lindsey, the other half of Almost 30. And she said it as far as our journey with almost 30. And, around the time that I met Krista, I had recently in the last year moved to LA. I made a huge move from New York to LA, one that I think was kind of the mark of my Saturn return. And prior to that, I was in a long-term relationship who I thought was going to be my person. And I really thought that I knew how my life was going to go. And of course, it doesn't go that way, but I didn't have that understanding that there were forces beyond my own that were working for me and supporting me. And so I just lived in such a state of resistance to a lot of things. And so when I got the opportunity to move to LA, it was like the me that I had known didn't answer. It was like the real me answered and was like, yes, absolutely. Like, yes. And I don't know why it's such a yes, but it's a yes. And so when I moved, I just felt this space open up within me. And I think LA just gave me this like really cool reset in my life. And I got to reset how I show up to relationships, how I show up for myself and take care of my body and my mind and just my spirit. And, almost 30 was and my relationship with Krista was such a manifestation of that continued desire to do that. So yeah, when we started almost 30, I could have never dreamed that I would like host a podcast and found a podcast. I was pursuing acting and things like that at the time, but it makes so much sense. I'd been behind the mic for Soul Cycle for so long. I was a singer and, just all of these ways that I chose to express myself. This was like a natural evolution of that. And so I just continue to like show up for that creative spirit in me that just always wants to create and serve in a way that is truly me, but also truly felt and needed.
Love that so much. I love how like life just has its own plan. And it's like in the moment, sometimes it can be so hard and we just don't see it. And then we have this like high level perspective and especially of course, hindsight, but just like, I don't know, for me personally, trying to like go through, even when it's sticky and even when it's hard, just like taking that of like, everything's going to work out. Everything works out for a reason. So
yes, it's something sometimes you have to experience it to understand it. And I feel like if I was someone that didn't know that my life would work out in this way, I would be like, oh, whatever, that's for you. That's not for me. That's not part of my path. But there really is that, everything happens for a reason when you see it, which is like one of the best things, but you just have to really keep showing up for it and keep asking for it and keep praying for it and keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Mm-hmm. How has it changed? Like as a listener, the guests you've had on, the spiritual practices, everything you guys talk about just as a listener has been so transformative. I can only imagine like how much that's deeply changed your spiritual practices and everything.
Yeah, in so many ways, And I think it just continues to, and not every topic that we talk about, not every practice that we discuss and learn more about is for us, and I think we're in a unique position to be able to just kind of experiment and experience so much. So like, I feel like my learning has been around like discerning what's for me and what's not, and not getting too tripped up when I'm like, oh, this actually doesn't feel aligned, or this doesn't feel like it's for me, and not feeling like I'm missing out on something. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so funny. I feel like the trajectory has been, okay, do a lot of things and make it complicated and go really far out there. And then it's kind of come around to just making the everyday practice a lot more simplistic. And that's feeling really good right now. Maybe I'll go out there and be really complex again, but it's like, it feels good to kind of bring it back home and just keep things really, really simple. And it changes day to day. It could be a day of quiet and just like living meditation. And it could be a day of, we were just talking about the class before this, Taryn Toomey's the class. It could be a day of like really being in my body and really kind of being expressive and connected to God through my body. So yeah, I've just kind of been flexible with how it moves through.
Mm. You have Virgo energy, right?
What Virgo? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And I'm Virgo rising.
Oh, are you?
Mhm.
Oh, I love
And
that.
almost 30 is triple Virgo. So
Really?
Yeah, triple
That's
Virgo.
so interesting.
All my friends are
Wow.
Virgos, literally all of them. Their birthdays are like within the same week. It's actually
Wow.
wild.
That's so funny. I pulled my podcast astrology chart too. So I am
Yes.
Taurus, Sun, Leo, Moon, Leo, rising.
Wow.
And my podcast is Cancer Sun, which makes sense because it's all about emotions, and Leo Sun or Leo Moon, Leo rising. And the sun
Wow.
sign is where my Chiron is. So I'm like, of course it would be like the thing that's going to help me like push past that.
Yes.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening, so what you can do if you've started a business or an adventure or an endeavor, you can pull the astrology or you can input the astrology as if it was a baby that was born, and see the chart of your project or your business or your podcast or whatever it is that you're doing. And it can help you, work within your business or venture and really understand it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So what has this is the Emotional Mastery Podcast. So I would love to know just like what your relationship with your emotions has been throughout your life and like how it shifted throughout this experience for you.
Yeah, I think for me, I was always someone that, my relationship with my emotions. I was someone that felt a lot, from a young age. I was like quite the feeler. And a lot of that turned to like frustration and anger because of the way that I grew up and sort of the situations that I was in. And then a lot of that was like stuffing and numbing of my emotions and my feelings through food, or through other modalities. So I've really had to rework and learn to relove my emotions and learn to see the power in my emotions and sort of, just support my emotions in whatever expression they're trying to get through. But it's really been a challenge for me. I've definitely been someone that didn't find myself wanting to have any emotions. I felt like they were annoying. I felt like it was kind of like, oh, can't I just be more like a guy and just kind of be in this like linear feeling or just kind of this way of less expression. And I remember one time I was talking to my therapist and I was kind of expressing to her that I was like, oh man, I just wish the emotions would go away, or I just wish my needs would go away. And I realized that so much of that is like really part of the experience and really is part of me, all of these different touch points of different energies, whether I'm interacting with my friends or in my business or my relationship or whatever. So it's been a hard one, and it's been something that I've come around to in a much more beautiful way. And I think the one thing that was really profound around my emotions was when I got off birth control. So I was on hormonal birth control from the time I was 14 until the time I was 26. So a good amount of time. And I remember when I got off hormonal birth control after wanting to get off intuitively, I felt completely different. And I felt like a veil had been lifted. And I felt like I had better control over my emotions and my expression than ever before. And I realized that things that I ingested in my body or things that I took or medications could really impact my emotions and how I was feeling. And up until that point, I thought I was my emotions. I thought I was, emotional. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was up and down. I thought I was all these things. And so that was a huge shift for me. And from that point, it was much easier for me to really pull apart and step aside and be in conversation with my emotions rather than being identified with my emotions. But the journey of that has been long and hard, and I feel better than ever, and it continues to be better than ever. But I have a lot of compassion for people that really work with that like depth of feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be. So I've been on birth control since 16. I'm almost 36. And I've been really like, the more like spiritual I get, the more I'm just feeling called to like stop. So that's really interesting you said that. But yeah, I know emotions are a tricky thing.
What's your fear?
Honestly, I don't know. I have 2 kids and I'm a single mom, so probably just getting pregnant.
Yes,
like,
of course.
Yes. It's a lot. And I think it's just, I've been on it for so long that,
of course.
Totally.
Yeah. Do it whenever it's right. It doesn't even have to happen or not, but if it feels right for you.
And thankfully there are like really cool ways to like support coming off of it. And then also like to track your cycle. Like, I don't know if that existed years and I guess it maybe did. I don't really know, but it feels like it's more mainstream now to support women in that transition from being on birth control. But as far as my relationship with my emotions, I think that, you know, I never allowed myself to feel them fully, because if I felt them fully, I felt like they were too much for other people. So I was more concerned with like how I would be metabolized by my family, by, you know, friends. And so I kind of just like walked a little bit farther away from how I really felt, and did a really good job of, I think, I don't know if faking it's the word, but it's almost like performative, where it's like, I'm fine, or like just basically placating to other people and making sure they felt more comfortable at the expense of my own comfort. So, I think that what was really interesting is that later in life, in my late 20s, kind of during my Saturn return, and this overlapped with the podcast a bit, where this like trapped heat in my body, almost like these unexpressed emotions, had like started to manifest physically. And it's not the only cause of my acne, which is what I had like pretty chronically. But I do believe it was a huge part of it, which was so, so interesting. And so when I started therapy, when I started to express myself honestly and fully to friends and family, and just like actually allow my emotions to flow through me, my acne got better. So there was a lot of factors at play, but that was kind of like the secret sauce that I was like, oh, wait, no one's talking about this. There's something to the heat, whether it's anger, like whatever emotion is trapped in your body, it can, from my like, what I visualize is kind of it just bubbles to the surface, and it's going to ask to be felt. And if you don't feel it, it's going to manifest physically. So I thought that was such a huge lesson for me. And just what I realized about my emotions is that like the emotional wave passes much quicker than I think it will, you know, so I'll put off an emotion because I think, oh, I can't deal with this right now. But then like when I actually allow myself to feel it, passes much quicker than I anticipate. And so, and it also just frees me up in so many ways. I think creatively is like the number one. So it really like allows the channel to open in a lot of ways when I allow myself to feel it. But like Krista, it's just always something I'm learning how to do in a way that feels like safe, and also like me, you know, not like what I think it should look like.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we do like push them aside and just be like, we'll deal with it later. And then it just like kind of gets bigger. And I think when we do deal with it, then the depth of it becomes like the thing that becomes overwhelming. As you're speaking to, I was thinking of like Ayurveda because you're talking about like fire and acne and stuff. And so I'm a health coach, but like certified gut health. And so it's all tied down to the gut. Right. And so our emotions are like hugely tied into there too. So it's like, if you're not dealing with it, it does like manifest physically a lot of times. And I think a lot of times we don't realize that. Like sometimes I'll feel like a certain way. And now I've gotten into the practice of like, if something doesn't feel good, like my knee hurts or my back or something, I always just kind of like take a pause and be like, what is this trying to tell me? Instead of just being like, you know, popping the pill or something to make it stop, because it's all talking to us.
Yeah. Dr. Zach Bush was, he came in last week and he was talking about that too with the emotions. He's like 7 seconds is how much time it takes for an emotion to come up. And he's like, what happens is people don't even have 7 seconds where they sit with an emotion from the full, you know, cycle of it. So basically we stop it. And then he's like, what's unprocessed often goes in our tissues. And that's why we have, you know, just so much of that energy stuck in our tissues if it's not being processed within our body. And I have a friend actually that has been recently doing really, really deep fascial work. And she's been working through a lot of emotions that are stuck in her fascia. So it's like almost the last part of her healing process where she's identified it, it's come up. Now she's working through her actual tissues with like screaming and yelling and all these different things and sort of getting it all out so she can just fully process it. But I think you're exactly right. Asking sort of what the pain is or what the issue is, like, what is it telling you and what does it need? And I think that's the best way to get in tune with our body rather than continuing to find ways to avoid or numb.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing what comes up and
Yes.
like things that you don't even think, like the work that I've done on myself. There are little things in my childhood where I'm like, there's no way. Like that was so like small, right? Like it seemed small at the time and it's just like still carried in today. But
I know.
Yeah.
It's sometimes embarrassing. You're like, oh my gosh, is this really that big of a deal? You're like, is this really? And I've also too had experiences where I had situations happen that were so impactful for me, completely changed my life. And I'll talk about it with people or like even my family. And I'll be like, do you guys remember when this thing happened? And oh my gosh, everyone's perspective is so different. And it's almost like horrifying. You're like, this whole thing that changed my entire life where I was completely the victim. Like everyone's remembering something different. But I think something that we've learned just on that piece I wanted to mention was that giving yourself the validation of allowing that experience to be as traumatic as you believed it or perceived it to be when you're little. Cause I think for a long time, I didn't validate my experience of my inner child and of my younger self. And I was like, oh, that's silly. That's stupid. That would never matter. But we really have to put ourselves in the mind of a toddler, in the mind of a child, in the mind of a young person to really understand the gravity of a situation like that. Cause we're really, creating the patterning and subconscious from 0 to 7. So it's very important that we look at that.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times, especially with relationships with our parents, like I know for me, it's like, even as an adult, it's hard for me to really like dig into that. And like, I have awareness around it, but yeah, as a child, I think your parents are like, they're like heroes, right? Like they're these, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is, but they are like, they can do no wrong, right? Because they're your parents. And so it's hard and now that I am a parent. And so I look at things that have happened with my parents and I know they did the best they could, but that was one thing that in the beginning of this like mother wound and healing the relationship with my parents is what I always had to tell myself, was just like, they did the best that they did. They did the best they could with what they had, but it doesn't invalidate my experience with it. So It's like, I can have grace, but also allow myself to like feel what my reality was.
Yes.
So,
yes. Yeah. I was just thinking about how we're basically like taught at a very young age. And I think that's changing with a lot of like conscious parenting or, people that I know that are parents and I observe them, but we were taught like to outsource our intuition, like in so many ways, whether it was at home or at school. And it's really cool to see parents now, like asking their child, like, so how do you feel? How does this make you feel? Like, what do you feel like is the best choice for you? And, just encouraging them to explain why and just making those connections, because of course, as a parent, you want to guide your children in a certain way. And I think that's right. But also it's like, then when's the point so they go from being like kids to adults and then what are they going to do? So I just think that's super, super interesting and being able to like kind of see that as a parent because your own inner child. So it's like just being able to support the actual child because your own.
Yeah. I've gotten from my parents a lot of times where they're like, because I ask my kids, I'm like, what do you need from me? How can I support you? What are you feeling? We've got like the face chart on the fridge, we used to when they were younger. And I just be like, what are you feeling? Especially my son, he's a Scorpio rising. So he's got a lot of anger in there, but I just like want him to talk about it. But my parents are always like, we're fine. We're fine. We weren't sensitive like that and we're fine. I'm like, but why is it like, why wouldn't you want to be great? Like, I know that baseline. Like, yeah. It's like, I know that
my mom would say that like, oh, I did that and you lived. I'm like, is that the goal?
I know, literally.
It's so sad, but it's those little things that we say and we do, when you catch your words all the time, when you're like, yeah, you lived, you survived. It's like, okay. Or like, I even think about like devil's advocate, that phrase I talk about. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be devil's advocate in any capacity. Or when we're like, oh my God, I die for that, like all that kind of stuff is kind of insidious the way that it gets in. But yeah, I feel bad for our parents because there's it's almost like I felt like there's such a suppression of their emotions that they aren't even accessible. It's like they're so deep within It's like the
Yep.
fire has been put out completely. And sometimes it's like, I feel like with our generation, there's a fire and it's almost like being pushed so much that it becomes like a blaze and everyone becomes mad. So there's almost more emotion, but it's almost like their fires can been completely out just because they've been so suppressed. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And even if they did really look at it now at the age, I think it almost would be too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like you push that down for 60, 70 years. It's, even for me, I suppressed mine for 30 years. In the last 5 years, I cry like almost every day, so it's like, it is a lot. But yeah. So I wanted to ask you, like, human design. I know that, are you guys emotionally defined? Are you like, is that your authority or?
Let me see. I think I'm a projector. I'm a 3-5 projector.
Oh, 3-5. Okay.
I think I'm splenic authority. Is that intuition?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's like an in the moment knowing, but it's
Yes,
like, it's really soft. It talks once and then it leaves you alone. So you kind of have to really be tapped in. Okay.
Yes.
I'm 5-1 MG emotional authority.
MG emotional. Okay. I have so many 5-1s. Like every time I pulled a chart recently, it's been 5-1s, Capricorn moons. I don't know. There's like such a lesson there because I'm all the fire and the emotions. I think that just try to like ground me down. But
yes.
And you're a 3-6 or sorry, 3-5.
3-5. Yeah.
3-5. Okay. Okay. I thought on Instagram I thought it was, I read 3-6, but
I think, or maybe I said that. Dude, to be honest, what's so funny is like our friend, like we literally had human design on the podcast 5 years ago. And honestly, it's like, I know enough, but I just try to not get too mired in the details of things. I'm like, what? Maybe. Because honestly, this is why. Because honestly, I had the wrong birth time for so long. So I remember I looked at my chart on astrology for the first time and I was like, I literally never felt so seen. I was like, I'm a Leo rising, Scorpio moon, Pisces sun. I was like, oh my God, this is me. And then it was the wrong birth time. And then I'm like, what is this? What is this about? That I felt so seen at the wrong information. So I try not to get so attached to it. But anyways, I think I'm a 3-5 or 3-6.
Okay. Either way. No, I get that. Like when I first learned about human design, like I dove like head in, I studied it for so much. And like in the past year, I've just had to because I felt like it was like defining me.
Yes.
And so like in the past year, I've disconnected from so much because I'm like, I need to come to myself and like have my knowing and let that just be a compliment to what I already know.
Yes.
So
100%.
Completely.
You don't want dogma with anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to be like dogmatic about any part of life. And sometimes some things resonate with you and some things don't. And that's something we've had to learn through the podcast over the years that, we're going to have on tons of experts and topics and leaders on various different things, but not everything is going to work for everyone. Not every healing practice is going to work for me or work for Lindsay. And we just have to really try all the different things and figure out what really resonates for our unique energy signature.
Yeah. What has been like the most profound tool that you found so far? Like spiritually, emotionally, anything?
Oh man. I feel like my answer changes often.
Which is fun.
Yeah, I haven't done it in a couple months, but breath work is one that I always, whenever I do it, I'm like, oh my God, why don't I do this every single week? Like it is, for me, it is the straight shot to my soul, God. Like, and I know it doesn't need to take breath work to get there, but it's pretty wild that it does it so quickly and there's no substances involved. It's just literally your breath. So that just experience alone just always, it's always just so profound for me. And it's in those moments, I think, that I have like heard my inner voice the clearest.
I love that. Yeah. Breath work is powerful.
I'm not cool. I'm not like bold enough for breath work. I kind of resist it every time. But I think for me,
she'll just do 3 cups of ayahuasca. It's all good.
Yeah. I'm just like different. I don't know what it is. I honestly think that if I let breath work get to me, I will burn something down. I honestly think I would just erupt in rage. I think for me, human design is a good one. Reiki has probably been my favorite. And Reiki more so just like the understanding of energetics. Like I think people and culture, we talk about vibes and we talk about energy and all these things, but there's such a power to understanding the nuance energetics of everything, of a conversation, of how you feel, of a relationship, of a business, of food. It just never really stops. And so if we're all energetic beings and creatures, my understanding of how to leverage Reiki or understand how to maintain my energy or give energy or receive energy has just been really powerful. And I felt like I've had better boundaries. I felt like I've had better relationships. I'm more myself. I can read situations better. It's just really been incredible. So I think Reiki into energy understanding and energy management and hygiene has been really profound for me.
Mm-hmm. Are you Reiki certified?
Mm-hmm.
You went through it? Yeah.
I
started
Reiki master.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Pretty much amazing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I can heal the world. I can heal the world with my touch.
What has ayahuasca been like for you guys? Because it's something like I want like microdosing shrooms and like ayahuasca. Like I feel like I've always had a lot going on in my mind, which is always my hesitation with something that's going to like alter me so much. And I'm reading the book Wild, and the way that she describes it about like vomiting or being sick and like the depths that it can like get to you. But it's something that I feel like I'm being called more and more towards. And I'll do it when I'm in the right headspace, when I feel like I'm there. But I'm just out of curiosity if there's any like stories or anything that how it changed you or affected you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like.
What's the book Wild? Who wrote that?
Jay Griffiths.
Oh, cool.
Was that the movie?
Yeah, I was wondering if that was that sounds familiar.
She did like 7 years in, I think it was like in the Amazon. And it's her words are like the way she describes even just like a leaf blowing or like the sounds of the trees is absolutely stunning. Like I'm just like,
that's like Women Who Run with the Wolves. I was like,
Yes.
she was describing how she grew up in Michigan, which is by my house in the summer. And I was like, I felt like I was there. It was made me so emotional, but I'll let Lindsay explain hers and then I'll explain mine.
Yeah. So we had like kind of talked about it a little bit in passing between each other, like, ayahuasca. Okay. I feel like, when it's the right time, it'll be easy. And quite literally, it like fell into our laps, this opportunity to go to Rhythmia in Costa Rica. And this is a place that I would recommend for people who really want to feel incredibly supported in every way. So there was like a colonic experience every other day. There was integration sessions. There was educational sessions, just really making you feel supported. And so we were there for a week and we did 4 nights of ayahuasca. And for me personally, it was super, super gentle. And I think that's exactly what I needed. And for me, the experience was mostly as if scenes from my life popped up in projector form, like almost like watching a movie. And, scenes ranged from like past relationships to when my mom had cancer to when I was born. Like oftentimes people who take ayahuasca have either a birth or a death experience of themselves. And so I had this birth experience where I like saw my parents as I was like coming through my mom's vagina. I was like but it was so cool because I felt like how happy everyone was and I was happy. I could feel my face as if I was a baby. It was like it was so crazy. Like it was one of those experiences. I was like, what the hell is happening? But it's really, really beautiful. So yeah, mine was super gentle and I'm glad about that. And the integration process was kind of happening months and months afterward. But I do feel like for me, it kind of lifted the veil between me and the natural world, where like before I kind of felt the separation because I hadn't really done, I think I did mushrooms once before, but I hadn't really done any psychedelics or anything like that before then. So like this really, I mean, I was like the trees were talking to me, like the stars were communicating. It was like all so connected and one, and it was just really, really beautiful.
Did you have any sort of anxiety like going into it, or you were just completely at peace with it?
Yeah. And anxiety. Yeah. Cause you get scared. You're like, am I going to ship everywhere? Am I going to throw up? Like you just don't know. But I think after night one, you kind of know what you're getting into. We were in a room with a lot of people, which I'll let Krista explain, but it was kind of intense in that way. So there were some anxieties there.
Yeah, I think, for anyone that's curious or interested in doing plant medicines or ayahuasca or anything, just like checking in on your intention, finding a safe place, finding some support team or friend or community or shaman or indigenous peoples that can really just help you making it the best experience possible. Because I think if you do those experiences like out of integrity and intention, it can be really hard to integrate that, what's happened to you. So when we did ayahuasca, we did it, I think 4 nights in a row in Costa Rica. And it was interesting because the months leading up to it, I felt like my dreams were wild. And I felt like Mother Ayahuasca was kind of working through a lot of things within my dream state. That's when I started the mother wound healing. And that's when I really started more of my awakening process that I really, live today. So I do feel like it was really helping me. But when we went to the place, there was 70 people that were taking the medicine that night. And there was a good amount of shamans that were supporting the ceremony. But for me, I am very sensitive, and I do not get comfortable easily in those situations. And I take it very seriously that, my soul will essentially be like leaving my body for a bit. And I wasn't able to get comfortable or feel like I could let go or feel like I could trust or feel like I could let myself have an experience because I was with people that I didn't really know. We kind of met them that week, but I didn't feel comfortable really going off onto Mars when my body was in this room with 70 people. So I had varying degrees of an experience. I saw some things and I had releases where I was crying quite a bit. I didn't throw up. I didn't like poop my pants or anything like that. But it wasn't as profound or as crazy as I think a lot of people have had. It was actually really gentle. And it actually felt like times when I'd done ecstasy. I'd done ecstasy before and it kind of felt like ecstasy a little bit, but I didn't really have like seeing aliens or anything like that. So mine wasn't like a crazy story like people expect. And now at this point, I think that Mother Ayahuasca or ayahuasca is not the plant for me. I don't think we're meant to be.
I did. So like in college, I did ecstasy and I got crazy sick, like when it all hit me. Yeah. And then I was just like, I was freaking out, but I just like, something in me was just like, just write it out. You're in this now. So I don't know. Then I calmed down and I loved it, but that's what I
get sick. Like you threw up or what kind of sickness?
Yeah. I threw up like all over myself, like in front of everyone. It was horrible.
Wow.
But
yeah,
I mean,
because that's the thing too. I think about, my drug phase and I'm like, wow, that was really unsafe, going places, buying drugs from strangers, getting drugs from strangers. Like it's like, I feel like I'm officially getting into like mom mode because I'm like, wow, that was very unsafe when you're doing stuff like that. And I don't think people talk about that a lot. And I think with fen or or what is it?
Fentanyl?
Fentanyl, yes. It's kind of a waking up to people to that, the fact that these drugs can contain really anything. It can be really dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's when I've always been like aware of drugs and things like that they could actually kill me. Yeah. And I think so like when I was younger, like I experimented, but there was enough of a fear that was like, I don't want to die. And like when I did that one time when I did do ecstasy, there was somebody that was just like passed out and the bouncers were like carrying them off. And I'm like, I wanted to like find out if they were okay, because you don't know. And people, it's just a different experience. But yeah, so I've always kind of, I think that's when it comes to like ayahuasca or shrooms or anything like that. Like I always think about my ecstasy experience and I'm like it was fun. It turned out to be a lot of fun, but it was just like that initial anxiety was just hard to get past for me.
Yeah. Cause I think ecstasy oftentimes is mixed with like Adderalls and can be like quite the upper. And I've had that experience too, where you feel insane. Like I felt like I was like, I need to go to the hospital. Yeah. I feel insane. So it's kind of a catch-22 where you can have really beautiful, expansive experiences and you can have really, really, really shitty ones. And it's kind of at this point in my life now, I'm like, I don't really want to risk it. I'm kind of like, I'm happy in my life. I don't really want to risk the highs and the lows of it all to have a spiritual experience that I could be rushing or I could be forcing upon a situation that might not be there.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody at work today. I bartend, and he was saying, I don't know, he was saying something about like drinking wine and drinking whiskey. And it's just something you said, just like triggered the memory. But I was like, yeah, I don't really drink that much anymore. And he goes, oh, you're happy. I was like, I kind of laughed, but I was like, I am. Like, I don't feel the need to anymore. I mean, like I still will like, on occasion, but overall, like I just don't feel like I need to like numb who I am anymore with it.
Yes.
You know, it's more of like a social, social experience now. Cause like, after work, all the people I work with they're all in their early 20s. They want to go like have a couple of drinks after. So like, I'll have a glass of wine and go home. And it's like, I have so much going on outside of that. And it just like numbs everything else. But I know, Krista, you don't drink, or right, on occasion. Like, what has both of you, like your relationship to alcohol been throughout your life, and like how it's been recently?
Yeah, I think for anyone listening, choosing to not drink was probably the biggest propeller to being someone that I loved and being in a life that I loved. I grew up in Ohio, and drinking is completely part of the culture. I lived in Chicago for a long time, very much in the culture, even in New York City. But I remember being in Chicago and I was like, something needs to change. I want a life that's different. I don't feel like I'm living my purpose. I'm at a corporate job I don't really love. I'm in a relationship I don't really love. And I keep being hungover every weekend. I'm spending tons of money on alcohol and I don't really enjoy it. And I just was kind of awakening to these things that didn't feel aligned for me, where I'm spending money that I don't have. I feel like crap. It's not making me look good. I'm not enjoying myself. I just didn't feel really stimulated by it. So I made the decision when I was 25 to stop drinking, and just sort of told all my friends and told everyone in my life that I was going to be doing this. And it definitely was very odd. No one else was not drinking. Everyone else was drinking all of the time. But that decision and that real boundary that I set for myself in choosing myself really gave me so much confidence. And every time I said no to drinking, I got even more confident. And I almost got this like high out of choosing myself and saying no to people and telling them how I wanted to be treated and telling them how I wanted to feel. And so I stopped drinking for around 5 years. I was doing drugs during that time. I was doing like recreational drugs. So it's not like I was completely sober. But I now maybe have 2 drinks a year. Maybe I'll have 1 drink every once in a while. I don't really drink at all, just because I found that for me personally, and the way that I work and the way that I feel, I really just don't do well. I don't like the feeling of being drunk. I don't like the feeling of being out of control. I don't like the feeling of being hungover. And I think it's a real disservice that as a culture, we find it really normal to be drunk a lot. And we find it normal to drink, and we find it normal to spend Fridays and Saturdays at the bar drinking, getting drunk, and then being hungover all weekend. It's no accident that we're working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and then drinking on Friday and Saturday and hungover all day, Saturday and Sunday. Like, that's no accident. And it's kind of keeping us in the same place. So I highly recommend people trying to go sober for 30 days or, 60 days or even 10 days and seeing how you feel. And I think as you start to feel better and better, it becomes addictive, and you just become in this new vibration or this new state, and it becomes a part of who you are, and you can really learn to choose yourself. But I have no judgment of others. I just really feel like it's been something that's been really profound for me, and I want to shout it from the rooftops whenever I can get a chance.
Yeah. I think it's sometimes really hard to like be ourselves, right?
Yeah.
In a culture where we're just constantly drinking and being from somebody who was shy for a lot of my life, like alcohol was the way I could kind of like fit in and be social and like speak up. And the last like 6 months, I've kind of been like off and on with it, like more off than on, but it's like through that, I'm like finding myself. And like you said, saying no is like empowering in a sense, when like I tell my family no, or I tell my friend no. But there are certain relationships where it's like, that relationship is kind of based on like having a few drinks and having fun. And then it's like, what is the relationship without it? So it's really, it can get really deep too.
Yeah. You will lose friends, along the journey whenever you choose yourself, period. And whenever you create boundaries, period. And, I was comfortable with that because I was just like, oh my God, so many people are boring that I'm hanging out with. I was like, I'm not aligned and I'm not interested in so many of the people that I'm around. And it felt good to kind of like move on and move forward and choose myself, but it isn't easy. But anything that's really worthwhile never usually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a lot of times too, when you're not drinking in a situation where everyone else is drinking, you do realize like, this isn't fun. There's like nothing here.
Yes. Yeah. I think that I've been thinking a lot about like where that started, and I think it's specific to how you grew up. Like my parents were super strict. Then you go to college and it's like just the culture, right? It's the culture to either sneak alcohol if you're underage or go out to the bars. And um, I don't know if there's a way to kind of like change that culture. But it's hard to break away from that because I feel like people have a hard time with like breaking away from like their youth, in that like season of their lives. Especially if you're living in a big city. And I, like you, like I bartended for years and years. And it was just kind of a part of how I relaxed after a shift or how I connected with people or how I made other people feel more comfortable because they were having a drink. So I'll have a drink. And, I was drinking way more than I thought I was. Like, I could handle a lot of liquor behind the bar when I was working. And if I drank that amount, if I wasn't working, I'm sure I'd be on the floor. But the adrenaline just kind of kept me like somewhat um, able to function. But I just noticed that it was taking such a toll on my health. Like, I just remember not being able to sleep very well. I was super inflamed. I had skin issues. Everything just wasn't feeling great. And it's funny, I look back on pictures and I'm sure a lot of us can say this. I feel like I look younger now than I did when I was in like my early to mid 20s. And I think it's because of the drinking, the late nights, the drinking, like all of that stuff. So yeah, I still drink on occasion, but it's definitely not something I do on a regular basis, maybe a couple times a month. And I always um, just like imbue the occasion with an intention because I find that sometimes it happens so quickly, like where you have a drink in your hand and you're like, why am I drinking this? And so if I'm just a little bit more intentional about it, where it's like I'm celebrating something, or I'm like so glad to be sitting down to dinner, having incredible food and have wine complement this food and have it be an experience. Like that's something I enjoy doing and something that I can be thoughtful about rather than just like bottle to face and being unconscious about it.
Yeah. I've been trying to pay more attention to the intention and the energy around it too. Cause it's also like, I don't want to sit and like shame myself or like beat myself up for like having the drink or like not.
Yes.
And I think I was listening to Abraham Hicks and someone asked something about alcohol. And the answer was just like, what is your vibration going into it? Like, are you at a high vibration? Or are you at a low? Cause that's what makes the difference. And so I think that's really powerful. Like, yeah. And even, being a bartender, I think a lot of people are like, come on, do shots. And now I'm just like, no, like,
my gosh.
I don't care about adding another $10 to your tab. You know what I mean? Like it's fine.
Yes, honestly. And just like, dude, it's hard to work. I remember one time I was at my job and it was a Friday and everyone's like, let's drink. And so it was like 3 p.m. on Friday. I was at my job and we're in like our cubicles and we're drinking beers. I'm like, oh, this is my hell. Being drunk in a cube. Like I was like, oh, okay. This is the worst idea that I've ever had. I'm in neon lights in a cube with people I don't even like drinking beers. And now I'm like feeling tipsy. It was honestly so bad.
Yeah. I've been, that's happened. And then like you have to focus.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. I was like, what? Okay. Now we're supposed to like do emails. Like, what do you mean? I was like, this is so weird.
Yeah. What was your transition like out of corporate? Cause I did like, I've bounced around a lot and I did like maybe like 4 years in corporate. And then COVID happened and I lost my job.
Oh yeah.
But now like with the podcast and like bartending is, supplements and I'm just like trying to do my own thing. I just like, I feel like I can't, my parents obviously want me to go back into it because it's stable, it's secure, all those things. But I'm just like, I felt so boxed in.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't go from this like back to that. But like, did you enjoy it at some point or you just like, was it the path you felt like you had to go on?
I think it was the path I felt like I had to. It was like, that's kind of what everyone did. And I did want to make a lot of money. I was like, I want to be successful. I want to make a lot of money. I felt like that's what I had to do to prove. And I met some of the best people ever at some of my jobs. And I also met some really miserable people. And for me, a lot of it didn't make sense for my values. Like I value freedom and I value expression and I value just like integrity. And I just didn't really align with a lot of it. Although it was great because it supported me in what I wanted to do with the podcast for so long. So my transition out of it, I was in it for like 4 years. I did different jobs in events and digital marketing and consulting, just kind of trying to find my way. And it really taught me a lot. And that's one thing I will say about the corporate world is like, I kind of shit on it a lot because I feel like so much of what the corporate world is about is so soul crushing, but also it teaches us a lot about operating in the world today, email etiquette, business management, time management, contracts, agreements, employment, employees, employers, managers, so much. So I will say that it was a really beautiful part of my journey, but I'm so grateful that I'm not in it just for the sheer fact of like not feeling like I was being myself in it. I felt like I had to lie all the time. I felt like I had to be someone else. And I think that just ended up really killing me. And I'm grateful that I had an out with the podcast because I don't know what I would do if I still had to be like two people.
Yeah. Even like as you were talking about that, and I know you were talking about it in the accelerator program about like the email, the etiquette and all that stuff like that. It like makes my like chest like tight. So I'm like, I just, like having to like be so conscious and like showing up in a certain way.
Yes.
And like, I felt like I was so anxious, like every day in corporate when I showed up and I was like, what calls do I have today? And like, I have to pretend to like know everything. And like, the director doesn't want to be on the call. So I have to like bullshit my way out of it. I'm like,
I'll never forget when I was like sitting at my computer and I was like looking at an email from like a boss and it was like, I hope this finds you well. I was like, what are we doing? I was like, what's going on? I'm like, what are we saying? And I was like, remember being like, damn, I have to learn best regards. And I have to learn that I can use best with people that I know, but best regards with people that I don't know. And I could say, hope this finds you like all the fucking nuances of it all. I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And it was fascinating to me. I was like, wow, this is so interesting. There's like a whole culture of that exists.
Yeah. And all the like the underlying meanings behind like everything that's said. It's like you need like a translator for all of it.
I know, which is so annoying.
Yes, it's crazy. It's
why
great.
can't we just say what we want to say?
Yeah, like
and have it be okay.
I know.
That's why I figured if I ever got back into it, I'm like, I just need to show up as myself. And if if it's not meant to be, then it won't be.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think now it's kind of culture's changing a little bit where there's jobs that are more expressive, that allow for better work-life balance and really are more purpose-driven and purpose-led because there's a lot of small businesses and medium-sized businesses that are doing a lot of good in the world. So I do feel like you can find the right environment if that feels like a fit for you. And entrepreneurship is not the way for everyone. I think there's that like lie that people think that being an entrepreneur is like sexy and cool and like the better route, but that's not always true. I really think it's like whatever the best fit for is the right for that person because some people thrive in teams. Some people thrive as like a support. Some people thrive with feeling needed. Some people thrive with independence. It's all about like your unique, even human design or blueprint.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of getting to know yourself in that process too. And just like being able to admit, if it is or it isn't. But, so with your energy, going back to energy and human design, because you just mentioned it again too, how do you guys like balance that? Because like projector doesn't have the defined sacral, MG like does. Like, is there when you like come together, like say you're batching for a week, how does your energy work together? You've probably figured a flow out, but like, how does it feel?
Yeah. We work really well together. I feel like, whether it's our human design or just like our skills and genius, it really just kind of fits together like a little puzzle. And we've really had to learn how to allow our true nature, our true essence, our true talents, like kind of lead. I, early on in the podcast, always felt like, oh, I should be doing more of what you're doing. So bad that you're doing all, this. And I wasn't settling into like, wait, what am I really good at? And what do I bring to the table and how can I serve? And I was so focused on the other. And we've just had to get really honest with ourselves. I've had to get really honest with myself and just allow it to be a collaboration, to be a true partnership in that way. And we treat it as such. I mean, we always say we're kind of married in a sense, right? Like we share money and we are connected every single day. We have a business, we have a team, and we created something, created our baby, almost 30. So um yeah, it takes a lot of tending to. And I think as Krista and I have gotten to know ourselves better over the years, and we continue to, it just makes like our connection and understanding of one another, and just our flow between one another that much better.
Yeah. And I think, for both of us, we work really hard on ourselves on our own in our own individual therapies, which Lindsay was doing therapy before me. And then we also have a coach that supports us. We work with Kiki, who's a healer, that supports us as well. So having support is really, really important for the success of our relationship and our business. And I think for anyone, whether you're a solo entrepreneur or working with someone, it's always really good to like set up your support system so that you can call on specific people to help you when you need it. And you feel like you have the great foundation for creating a life that you love or a business that you love.
Has it always been easy between you? Like, has it just like flowed, or has it been like work?
It's work, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like we've gone through a season where there was just a lot of friction. And I think that was, in part to not being able to communicate properly
Yeah.
and just, yeah, not saying how we felt and what was on our hearts. And so there was just this like buildup, all these blocks between us. And um, yeah, I feel like we were both in our own stories about what was going on. And so, yeah, feel like we needed to go through that in order to just pave this whole new path of like just radical candor, honesty with each other, and a whole new level of connection and trust. And yeah, hasn't always been easy. It's always work, but like good relationships should take work.
Mm-hmm. Did that like flow out into other relationships in your life?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think like my relationship with Krista definitely has been what do I want to say? What is the word? It's like
I think for mine, it created a standard for intimacy and for love and for communication and support that like I now seek. And this is my kind of problem. It's like I'm seeking it in every relationship, but I don't think that will be like, even with like, I'm talking with my friends, like with Justin and Lindsay, it's just my new standard now to have that like heart-centered intimacy and truth and communication that we have, which is amazing.
I love that. Yeah. I'm like a recovering people pleaser. So it's like, I'm just trying to, find that standard for myself and just like knowing that I'm safe to like communicate. I'm safe to ask for what I want. I'm safe to like express that. And I think there's a lot of relationships that are just like falling away because of that. But it's like, I do deserve it. I am worthy of it. So
yes.
Yeah. So my last question for you guys. So when you are, well, two questions, but like when you're feeling like ungrounded, what is like your best practices that you come back to? And then I guess like on the end of that, like what advice would you give to anybody who is listening that is coming into this journey, that is working to find themselves and deal with their emotions?
Practices that I do: meditation. Meditation is number one. I meditate twice a day, and walks in nature. Both Lindsay and I are big walkers in nature. So that allows us to connect with our body, to connect with our mind, to connect with our soul. That allows us to connect with God because God is in nature. So I think those practices can really, really bring you back into yourself. And then I recently, I was just kind of going through it, like some just anxiety sort of loop thoughts that I was really going through. And I haven't journaled in a long time, and I've really been resistant to journaling, but I started to journal again the past week, and I was like, oh man, I forgot how good this is. So journaling, meditation, walks in nature are some of the things that, have really, really helped me.
Yeah. In addition to that, for me, I think it's like having a creative outlet or creative practice that I'm visiting, every day if I can, whether it's singing or cooking or just something that really takes me out of my head. Um, I I feel like over the last few months, like laughing and joy has been a medicine that I didn't expect I needed. I'm like, oh yeah, I laugh. Like I have fun, but it was like the allowing of it every single day and allowing myself to just like really laugh and to be fully present to something that is bringing me joy rather than like kind of rushing through it and getting to the next thing. I think that's been a practice that's been really, really helpful. Um, and then, yeah, just tending to like my body. So movement, stretching, taking baths, like it's just like asking what the physical body needs. It's usually, connected to something that like the soul needs, but that's always super helpful too.
I love it. Well, I just want to say thank you to you guys, not only for being on today, but just like the whole podcast accelerator program has just been like amazing. And you're both so beautifully intentional, like when you show up, in any way that I've seen you in any capacity. And it's been such a pleasure to like be in the group and to learn and to be in the energy and just, like I said before, like kind of the shifts that I've seen in my own life, podcast and off in relationships has been amazing. So I just want to thank you guys for that.
Oh, we're so proud of you. Truly, this group has just showed us a lot of things, and it's this very, very, very special group. And your podcast is just incredible and so intentional, and it's felt. We are on quite a few podcasts, and it's not every podcast that we feel like the host is super connected to their intention and mission. And it's just truly felt with you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I love us in the DMs, and this has been such a lovely conversation. We're so proud of you, and we're here for you. And I'm just really excited to see what the next couple months brings with all the good energy that you're bringing into it. So thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you. Of course. On a complete side note, it was so funny. I was like looking through my like routine this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that I've gotten like from listening to you guys on the podcast, like my toothpaste, my face stuff, like my whole day, like Primal Life, Clear Stem. I mean, it's like crazy seed, ion. I'm like, it's wild how I'm like the ideal consumer. I'm just like, but it's like hearing it and connecting with like the owners or the people who founded it and like actually sensing their energy and their passion, their love for it, that I'm just like sold. Like, such an easy decision. So.
Makes me so happy. Anyone who's listening, Almost 30 code, just try it.
Yeah, just try the code.
Just try it anywhere you shop. You might get
Go
it.
to Whole Foods, try Almost 30. Go to Amazon, try Almost 30. Who knows?
I have done that before too, because I'm like, I wonder if there's a code for that. And it did work.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. We will see you soon. Keep us posted with everything.
I will. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Bye. Bye.